This is going to show you how to add some texture, grass texture to an area that maybe you've already painted and it's kind of flat. You didn't get a chance to add some texture because I'm seeing a lot of flat grass, which is okay for the distance. Okay, if you look at this one here out in the distance where you can't see as much detail, but the closer it gets, the more texture you want to simulate seeing more detail. Okay, so if you have an area like this, what you want to do is you can re-wet it. So I'm trying to zoom in here, so I'm a little off camera with my paints. Get my light in a better position, maybe. Okay, so I'm going to re-wet this area. Whoops, drop some water there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drop some paint in here. I probably could have just painted it rather than re-wet, but I want the surface to kind of, well, because I'm going to add some texture, and that's why. Okay, so I've got that even. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush, mix up some paint in my palette, nice and thick, a darker green. I'm taking some blue and some brown. And I need a touch of yellow in there to make it greenish. There we go. All right. Now I think I'm going to mix even a, well, yeah, I'll go with that brush. Okay, so you want some glisten to that. Okay, it's soaked in, but it's still wet because I don't want it too soaking wet, or puddled, I should say, because I don't want the paint to go through far. And then my paint is pretty thick and dark. So what you can do is you just streak some randomly and work from the bottom up. That way it gets lighter as it goes up. So you know, it gets lighter as it gets further away. You know, and kind of fades out to help create that sense of depth to it. All right, and you know, it might dissipate quite quickly. It might spread a little bit further. You might have to just let it dry a little bit more, and then you can come back in with some darker paint. Okay, I'm going to come in here again and drop some more in, but I'm going to let it dry a little bit more because I don't want the paint to disperse quite that much. I don't want it to go quite as far. So the important thing is you got to get this at just the right level when you've got that sheen on there, but it's almost dry. And make sure that your paint that you're adding is thicker. Okay, it's like throwing down mud in a puddle. If you have watered down mud you throw in a puddle, it's all going to mix in. But if you have heavy mud, you throw it in there, it's not going to go quite as far. So you want mud. Let's try this again. Okay, there we go. Got a little heavier. Try to be random with it. As you put it in there, try not to do it all in, you know, in straight lines. And in fact, you can even, you know, do some lines up and down if you want, as well as going, you know, vertically across, just so you know, maybe it looks like a cluster of taller grass there, or whatever. Now, yeah, you can do some, you know, you do those final details in the end. You know, in the front to show those, you know, with the, maybe you do that wet on dry so it doesn't spread and you get some of that, you know. And you want some, even when you do those tall grasses in the front, you can see it goes a little taller here, goes down low here and taller here. You always want some variety, you know. Same thing here. I've got whatever, maybe that's not even in the photo, but you got to add some texture to it. Okay, and maybe one last little bit out there. Actually, I'm going to fill this in. Actually, I'm going to fill this in a little bit more. Now you can just do it like that, but I'm going back and filling this in a little bit more, and I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, so let's say your paints, you ended up filling it up too much, you know, and it ended up a big mess. Okay, I only use one color. If I was doing this, I was doing an actual painting, I just did one color for demonstration purposes, but I would have some other colors in here, even like some raw sienna. Let me just streak a little bit in there. I got some raw sienna in my palette, some browns, just for variety of color, you know, or even some splashes of yellow. You know, anything you can get in there. I don't know if I have any yellow, enough yellow. Get some of that in there, here and there for, you know, for a variety of color. Okay, so I've got it a little bit fuller than I want. And you can see it's still got a sheen to it. It's got a little bit too much, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop, and I talked about doing grasses before. I talked about dropping water in there, but I haven't really seen anyone kind of do that. That's how I got these effects that you see here. Okay, these effects were done by, once I painted this, I just dropped clean water in there once it was almost dry, and that kind of spreads out. That's how I got that. That's how I got these watermarks. These here, these fence posts and stuff were done by scraping. If you have something at home, I use these in the classroom, use these. I had them cut in a certain way. It was a little bit wider on the end, and I could scratch out the fence posts or wider blades of grass like that, and then use the corner to do the finer, you know, blades of grass. If you want some of those, you don't want to overdo it. Again, there was I think I just added a fence in the foreground, but if you have a fence in there, you can do that. Okay, let's see now. Let's try a little bit over here. It's pretty, and I'm just going to take some clean water, washed out my brush, get a little water on it, tap out the extra, and I'm just going to streak some water in there, and what it's going to do is it's going to push that other paint aside. And kind of like spread out and push that darker paint aside. And create some lighter spots in there. You can see it kind of working right in here. I'll try down in here a little bit, because if you put more water on a surface that's already started to dry, that's called a back bleed. Okay, normally you don't want that, and you can even dry off your brush and maybe even just lift out some color too. You can see how its color is kind of disappearing there. It worked pretty good over here, but you've got to get it so that it's almost dry, and then you throw that water in there. If you end up re-wetting the whole thing, it's not going to do too much, which I've done before. And you can even tilt your board like I'm doing here. I'm kind of tilting this. So if you need some lighter areas in the midst of darker areas, you know, that's one, you know, you can see how much texture I got there. Even if it's not like in the photograph, at least it's a lot more interesting, just like a flat, you know, plane. You know, when I drop color into this, you know, some of these, maybe it was mistakes, but, you know, it creates these interesting textures, which your mind just sort of, you know, your imagination just paints that in. When a viewer looks at it, their imagination just kind of paints it in. We're creating an illusion of texture. We don't necessarily have to paint in every bit of texture, or every detail, I should say, every blade of grass. Okay, but that's how you do that, and you can play around with that. You can do, you know, big droplets of water if you want, and just kind of let that sort of bleed around. You can see how that starts to disperse upward, right? Like that. You can get all kinds of, but you have to do this while these things are still wet. Otherwise, they're not going to have that impact. And there you go. So that's how you add some texture to an area that doesn't have texture. Let's see if I can even scrape some blades of grass in here. Put this down. So I have those dark, and you don't want to do that way off in the distance. I mean, if I had like a fence post or something out there, but I'm not going to make an impact. I'm only going to make an impact on the dark. That was too wide. But it still, you know, does something. If I hit a piece, if I can cut this down a little bit thinner. Then you can maybe scratch in some lines like that, kind of create that illusion of fence post in there through the dark areas. There you go.